excited about Renat's presentation. For those of you who are not familiar with Protofire, they help many businesses transition into the world of Web3 and accelerate crypto adoption. And they've deployed solutions leveraging Web3, DAOs, and protocols. Renat will be able to share more. Without further ado, over to Renat.
Hi, everyone. I'm Renat. We'll share with you the lessons learned over the last 4 years in the DeFi space as we back then began using real-world assets as collateral, and how the space matured, what changed, and what opportunities exist. I will ask you to help me tailor my impromptu walkthrough of the state where it is. It's quickly, dynamically changing, but if you can put into a chat, what are you working on? Do you have any assets that you want to use as collateral in DeFi and borrow against it? Using those examples from you, I could make my state of real-world assets as collateral and opportunities to be more tailored towards what you need and how it can help you with the projects that you may be already working on or considering. So we'll look forward for your examples of what kind of collateral that you would like to use to borrow against. Please put it in the chat. While I will start with an introduction of my story, how I got involved with real-world assets as collateral in DeFi. It was actually started way before I thought it would ever be possible. It was in 2016 when I went into crypto. It happened that I got this crypto bug and went, how we say, down the rabbit hole and went full time in it and into it. And so it was in 2016 when I found myself on a coin fund early interviews on YouTube that Jake Brookman was making with a few early crypto projects, and one day I ended up the same place as he was, and we had to take that call, and so it was a hangout we recorded for YouTube with founding members of MakerDAO. Back then, MakerDAO was not even live. It was just one of the many projects with great ideas out there in the space. And so that was the day when I learned more about underlying complexities of a system, which is today known as a kind of a gold standard for collateralized debt position type of DeFi protocol, CDP, short abbreviation, right? And back then there wasn't any collateral in the crypto space, any borrowing. There was no DAI or USDC. There was no Maker or like live on chain, right? Or Compound or Aave, right? Most of the individuals who started those projects were at the time just designing ideas and attending events to share what they want to build on, right? Like Stani Kulishov from Aave. Back then there was no Aave. It was called by the original name Eatland. As far as I remember, Compound was not even in the picture, right? And so couple of years forward, the DAI was preparing to launch, but it was a single collateral DAI. And a couple of years after that, grand vision of Maker was coming to fruition, and we finally were at the point where a multi-collateral DAI would be launched. And so it was extremely exciting for a lot of people. And so what we did were waiting in anticipation for what kind of collaterals can we add onto Maker, which at the time had, I think, like a few $100 million worth of DAI minted. And maybe $1 billion or so of collateral. And then when the multi-collateral DAI launched, right, the question was, okay, what can we add as collateral to make the system more stable, right? And the real-world assets was the answer to a huge problem we had, which is every time the price of crypto would go down, right, we as let's say as Maker holders would all like be extremely scared because should the price go down very fast, and the liquidations of collateral, if the debt would not be repaid, right, then the system would allow the liquidations to occur, right, and if the price goes down so fast that liquidators cannot keep up with liquidating, right, then we would have a bad debt accrual event. That's how I call it now, right? Where the shortage of amount of debt versus what the asset is worth. Let's say something is dropping from, let's say you deposit $1 million worth of Ether, right? You borrow, let's say, 800,000 worth of DAI. And then Ether keeps dropping. Now it's 900, now it's 850, right? And if liquidations don't occur fast enough, right, then we may end up in a situation where we only have like $600,000 worth of collateral, while the debt is still 800,000 DAI, right? And the shortage, the difference between those two numbers, 200,000, is the bad debt, right? Insolvency of this amount. And so because of the ETH was very volatile, the multi-collateral DAI presented an opportunity to add some collaterals that do not go down in price the same day or time when ETH goes down in price. So that was the origin of the hunt for uncorrelated assets in the collateral or multi-collateral DAI. And I had an opportunity to wait in line until multi-collateral DAI was to be launched to participate and play with it as a contributor in the form of basically one of the early interim risk teams, where my job was to, well, not the job, I volunteered for the role of contributor and was given a collateral, right? And collateral was account receivables, invoices. So my responsibility was to calculate stability fee, loan to value, debt ceiling, and the liquidation penalty, basically the parameters. That's when if something gets listed as collateral in order for the DAI to be minted against it, right? The parameters need to be calculated and provision deployed, enabling this asset to be used as collateral, right? And based on these numbers, the system knows how much to allow you to mint DAI against this asset, right? And so accounts receivables was that collateral, and 4 or 5 years later, I'm still involved in the space as an advisor to projects that want to get list their collaterals in a space. And so I wanted to show you where we stand now as far as what kind of collaterals are out there. What kind of collaterals are growing very fast, and what is missing, and what kind of collaterals that we need more at this point of time and opportunities. So there is a good website called RWA XYZ, where you can see the all forms of like a very one URL. If there is one thing you can look at, it would be that. I would recommend that one to take a look to understand what is the state of real world assets in the form of credit, right? Now, there are two kinds of borrowing that occurs in two kinds of systems in DeFi. I would give two examples to illustrate the two categories. One example would be what is known as a lending borrowing platform or a money market, right? Would be Aave, right, or Compound. This is category one, and the second type would be the over collateralized stable coins, where examples would be like MakerDAO, right? MakerDAO project, where users could deposit some collateral and borrow against it, right? The core difference between these two systems, while there is a lot of similarities, is where does the funds that you borrow against this collateral, right? Where do they come from? In the case of Aave, let's look at Aave. So in case of Aave, we see markets where you can deposit different assets, like for example, Ether or WBTC, right? And then you can borrow, right? Let's say you can borrow USDC at 3.4% a year, right? Which is quite good, right? But unlike systems like MakerDAO, this USDC need to be deposited by somebody, right? So if we look at 300 million deposited on this chain, we're currently looking at Ethereum deployment of Aave v3, right? There's v2, the previous version, right? And there are different chains where the Aave markets have been deployed, where they have their own separate numbers as far as how much was deposited and borrowed, right? So we can see out of 300 million, 257 million were borrowed, right? Which is quite a good utilization. And suppliers earn, those who lend, right, deposit, they earn 2.6%, and those who borrow pay 3.4%. How does this rate is being determined? This rate is being determined on utilization of a pool, right, which is expressed in the form of a formula called interest rate model, deployed in the form of a contract on Ethereum mainnet, where this contract basically describes how much to charge, right, to those who want to borrow, and it calculates the formula. It calculates the interest rate using the formula that takes into consideration how much was borrowed out of all of the assets of USDC that were available, right? And based on this utilization, right, it calculates an interest rate. So right now we can see that, let's say, at a very low utilization, right, if only a few million dollars would be borrowed, right, interest rate would be very low. Interest rate would be 0.19%, right? But because of more people borrowed, right, the interest rate growing, and the more the pool is utilized, at some point it may reach what is called the kink, where interest rate will start to grow exponentially to signal the holders of USDC investors that, hey guys, we have 33% for those who deposit and lend. It would be like 25, let's say, 30% interest rate that could earn. So it's based on the curve of utilization of capital, and the difference here that if let's say a real world asset would be allowed to be used as collateral, right, you would borrow out of the assets that have to be deposited by somebody, right? If no one deposits anything that you want to borrow, then there is nothing to borrow. Unlike Aave or compound, which works the same way, right? The MakerDAO works in a completely different manner, where no one needs to deposit USDC in order for you to be able to borrow against the asset, right? Because the DAI is minted, right? And that is what the key difference is. And so as of now, if we look into the various types of assets that exist, for example, in Maker, there is a category called real world assets, right? So if we look at only that that part, here's the query you can use to run it yourself, inspect it, right? Anyone can audit the protocol in real time without any permission, right? So that if someone is concerned about like solvency, is there collateral, right? What kind, right? You can go ahead and perform an audit in real time. It's open for anyone to audit the system. So as far as kinds of collaterals that exist right now, we can let's look at the type of collaterals with the highest amount of debt. They called by different MIPs, but in essence, if we just summarize, which is Maker Improvement Proposal, which is a vote that how the new collateral is added, right? Like if we want to list some collateral, we create a vote. Do you guys want to list it? And yes, all right, no. Based on the vote, the collateral is either listed or not. But most of the work is done by different teams that together collectively make what a DAO is, right? You can call them sub-DAOs. Some of them are risk teams, and so out of the different
Renat,
collaterals,
just a time check.
Yeah, all right.
We are almost out of time. If we can wrap up.
These are we as of today, majority of collaterals we have are either the largest ones are U.S. Treasuries, MIP 65, right? Then we have private loans like the some in the US started lending, but they borrow out of Maker, right? The new silver, for example, it's a real estate backed loans, and trade credit, Fortunify. So probably like 5, 6, 7 different categories of assets that are being used as collateral, and that would make what Maker is. Collectively, Maker represents probably $2 billion out of real world assets in DeFi, out of about total of 3 billion. But the category of U.S. Treasuries as a pool has been rapidly growing, and examples of protocols that are in the space where there is lending borrowing going on is Maple. It's more similar. It's of a second type. It's like a Aave for some specialty assets, where some pools accept deposits, right? And then some borrowers draw the credit out of them. The centrifuge is the second notable example. Here's examples of their pools, right? There is another big player called Goldfinch. They have recently had one of the first default events out of a credit pool. I think they have lost about 4% in a default of across their portfolio. Well, for those risks, lenders get paid handsomely with a premium they receive as a depositor. Some of these pools, like for example in Maple, they're switching to KYC pools, same as in Centrifuge, right? You cannot become a lender unless you're a credit investor in the US. If you're a non-US, you can go ahead. So there is a bit of securitization and structuring going. Overall, that's kind of an intro of into a real world asset usage as collateral to borrow. If any of you want to learn more how to do pilots or how to deploy your use case, I will stick around for some minutes. Go ahead, send a message or find me on LinkedIn. Would love to hear from you and help in any way I can. Thank you.
Hey, Renat, greatly appreciated.